Okay, today is August 23rd. The county is meeting with PBA Union for negotiations. Myself is Crystal Dodura, interim HR director.
Rich Powell, Chief Corrections.
Scott Nash, Commander, Scotty County Jail.
Charles Snow, Fort County.
Stanley Hope, Officer Wilson, Kent County Road Prison.
Jason Santos, Officer Road Prison.
James Newton, PBA President.
Lacey Crona, PBA Legal.
Alan Miller, Chief Negotiator for PBA.
Christopher Smith, Escambia County Jail.
Floyd Dipple, Escambia County Corrections.
Kristen Hewell, County Attorney's Office.
Wes Moreno, Unum County Administrator.
Jonathan Stuckey, Escambia County Corrections.
Bill West, Escambia County Corrections. Paul Hughes, Escambia County Corrections.
John Sawyer, Escambia County Corrections.
Kevin Daniels, Escambia County Corrections.
Franklin Johnston, Escambia County Corrections.
All right. You want to go first or want me to go first?
You got the document we want to see.
All right.
In the words of Jerry Maguire, show us the money. Surely you've got one more copy.
Yes, sorry. It's about 20, so I hope that's enough copies. I wasn't sure how many people show up.
How about trying?
My question is on the supervisors, is that years in grade or years of total service?
At that classification, I believe that was.
Correct.
Classifications of our interpretation of. So I think, if I understand correctly, that is y'all's counter proposal. So,
Well, our counter proposal was actually putting them total years of service with the same increases that the line officers had for those years of service, which would have been the 4 to 6 and then the 7+ years. And it was lumping in sergeants and lieutenants. We'll have to caucus on this, but for
Okay.
those who are sitting there, that 2, 4, and 6 is not the total raise. You would be put into, and correct me if I'm wrong, you'd be, whatever you're making right now, say you're making $20 an hour, and the next step is $20.20, you'll be moved to $20.20 plus whatever percentage that they have in front of that right now. So it'd be 2, 4, or 6%, depending upon your years of service.
That addresses those compression concerns.
Yeah.
you want to caucus?
Yeah, we're gonna need to.
Okay, return from copy.
We ready?
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty simple counter back, and that's to lump the sergeants and the lieutenants into one group and use total years of service versus time and grade. That will help with the compression. We just lost a 16-year officer across the bay to Santa Rosa for a considerable raise. This 1741 starting pay, you know, it's going to be a start, but it's not going to be the end all to getting people here. But we need to keep those who have worked hard for us, gotten those positions, because some of the line officers who have the 7 years or whatever, and you got a sergeant that just got bumped up, they could pass them. That's going to be a hard sell. But I believe that if we go sergeants and lieutenants and total years of service, that we can sell that to the troops, that they believe it's a true across-the-board issue at that point in time. And that's pretty much it. I remember back in the day when we first came to work here, this was a county that you came to retire in. And I get reminded of that riding up and down the interstate all the time. There's one truck thing that says, "We hire you to retire you." That's where we need to get back to. And if we can get them to a makeable wage, I think we can get back into that function.
Okay. So, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that in previous discussions, that it was talked about as in classification, those steps. Is that correct or is that not correct?
Our original pay proposal, which it didn't specifically, I mean, I've got it right here, it didn't specifically mention sergeants and lieutenants. It was corrections officers, because as we all know, you have to be a corrections officer before you can be a sergeant or a lieutenant. And the former HR director didn't want to assume, but for that particular person, they had called and asked for clarifications before, but they didn't call and ask for clarification for that. And that's when we came back the last time with just the 2% across the board for, or put in a position and then 2%. So basically anywhere from 2.5% to 3% for the supervisors, and that's when we countered back with wanting to put them in the same pay function, which is pretty much going to put your sergeants and your lieutenants in the, and if I misspeak, but it's going to be put them anywhere from 4 to 6 years or 7+ for most of your supervisors, because we have minimum years of requirement to make the supervisory positions. So that's our counter.
Okay. Can you say it one more time?
To place sergeants and lieutenants in by the years, their total years of service, into the increments of 2, 4, or 6.
Just the sergeants and lieutenants?
Yeah, we already agreed to the line officers.
Okay.
Last time we were here, and that hasn't changed. It was just we had to counter back because the supervisors were left that put them in a place and give them 2%. And that would have, how do we say, not flown.
Okay. All right. Barry, you got anything?
Well, the only thing I'm thinking about is I'm trying to make sure that we don't feel like we're fixing compression and actually creating it by lumping them all, everybody together like that by years of service. Because you're not recognizing somebody who's been a lieutenant. Just my thoughts off that. Lieutenant's got 6, 7 years in grade versus somebody who's only got it 1 week. They may have been here the whole time, but somebody's been doing the job of a lieutenant for 6, 7 years, and now they're going to equal them as, or give them the same percentage as somebody who's just been doing the job in a week. I'm just trying to make sure we, you know, it feels good what you said, but I'm thinking the seniority around this room, you've got, and throughout the department, you got people that have been being a sergeant a lot longer than many others. But now you're going to equalize them. They've been a CO for 13 years. This guy was a CO for 55 years, but been a sergeant for the remaining balance. They're not getting credit when you lump them all together. So I'm just saying, I hear you, but y'all need to think about what you're adding up here. The math is the math. Look at it as, I've been doing the responsibility for 10 years longer than a junior person of the same grade should they get the exact same percentage?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, not only that, so if I've been here for 30, so I've been here, I just put on sergeant, so I get this raise now. I just get sergeant, I'll just get 50, I'll end up making more than, I don't know, I'm just using you as an example, maybe more than Mr. Sawyer there, because I already have time in, I have my MCO, I have everything like that, and everything add on, and now I'm putting on sergeant, I'm gonna end up
But you
making
just
more
made
than
my
they
point. By lumping you together, you can surpass them with this.
make. No,
No.
if I stay,
Yeah.
if, what I'm trying to say, if I go here, so I'm in 7+, so I get a 6 or 8%, right? Say it's ratified whenever, I go up for sergeant 3 months from now. I still have this pay raise, I still get that sergeant's pay increase, I'll end up being where he's at anyway. So it's really not gonna fix it, is what I'm trying to say. How you, like what you're saying, how it's gonna,
When you start lumping years in service together versus time and classification, then you're going to create compression. That's the purpose of separating out based off you've been a sergeant X amount of years and this person's been, it's y'all's contract, I'm just doing the math, I've been doing this for 35 years. All right, I understand compression and how it's created. I just wanna make sure you guys are doing the math right. Because Johnny, who's been a sergeant or lieutenant for 10, 15 years, shouldn't be lumped in with somebody who has not been a sergeant for 10 or 15 years.
so I feel good with it, I guess I'll say yeah.
I mean, I get what Chief is saying when he's talking about compression, and he makes good points, and he is right to say that. But also, on the other hand, we have people, men and women, that have been at the top, that have been loyal, and have hung in here. And what they're basically saying is, at this current plan that we have, they're being cheated and shortchanged. And they have to be given consideration, even if they do step into a promotion. They still want to be able to step up too and get increases in their pay. And the only way we could see that happening was looking at it from that way, from that set of lens.
But that's the value of seeking additional responsibility and promoting early on and throughout your career, as opposed to waiting till you've got 15, 10, 15, 20 years in the department and say, okay, now I'm ready to be a sergeant for my last high five. Where somebody's been a sergeant for the last 15 years doing those responsibilities, now you want to put them all in the same pile. It's your guys' contract. This isn't a contract with me, but I have to be honest and forthright with you guys, recognizing that, yeah, it feels good, it sounds good, but if I was a lieutenant and been a lieutenant for 10 years and been having to deal with the headaches for 10 years, and now all of a sudden somebody, or let's use sergeant, for 10 years, and somebody who went to the academy with me, just been working a post for the last 10 years, I would not want them to all of a sudden catch me.
They're not gonna catch them.
Sure they are.
Well,
But look, hold on,
Okay.
Alan. So basically, what you're saying is, maybe we're gonna call it what it is. All the lieutenants get 6%. Everybody's got at least 7 years in grades gonna be a lieutenant. So 100% of lieutenants get 6%. I would be willing to say probably 60 or 70% of your sergeants, I know all of mine,
are gonna get
6%. So it's basically supervisor gets 6%. I mean, that's what we just need to say, sergeants and lieutenants get 6%.
That's why I
raise.
said it's gonna be your 5, 6, and 7, or it's gonna be the lowest, which would be 4%. Most of them are, you're correct, are gonna be.
I'm trying to do percentages. So we
Yeah, they're
got
gonna be
10% of
6%.
sergeants will get a 4, 90% get 6.
6.
All of you lieutenants get 6.
Yeah,
So it's basically a 6% raise for supervisors. Line officers get 2, 4, and 6.
yeah. That's where we're starting at.
Okay. We'll need to take a caucus and go talk about it a little bit.
Okay, appreciate it.
We'll come back.
No, we're good. There's the list of us.
Oh, sorry, but before we stop recording, I just wanted to have the others that joined, get them on the record. We have some additional.
Okay. Sure.
If you haven't.
They're getting signed in, gentlemen. Come on up.
You want to say your name and you'll say your name for the
Say your name for the recording,
And the agency.
and your agency, yeah.
John Martin, state your name.
Mario Martin, Kevin County Jail, thanks.
Mr. Johnson.
Anthony Johnson, Scammon County Manager. Thomas Hurley, Scammon County Marshal.
Ron Hankinson, that's Canby County.
That's it.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, good to go.
All right. So a couple things, just make sure we're all on the same page. The adjustment that we're seeing there, the 0 to 3, whatever, that is going to be, that's a one-time adjustment. We
Yeah.
clear on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounded like maybe it was.
Yeah, we had an agreement with Ms. Gilly that once we got through this cycle
Mhm.
and got some pay adjustments done, that then we would come back to the table again with openers for
Okay.
the future.
I just want to make sure.
It's not a multi-year deal,
Right.
as we hear from the diocese.
That's right. So the other point of clarification is that this adjustment, yes, whatever the board gives in October, you would be eligible for that as well.
Yes.
So we're all clear on that. Okay, our counter, and this has been, we had a executive session the other day with the board, and so they have blessed that proposal as it is. $757,000 is the impact to the budget. And so our counter will be that, and it will be based on years and grade. That's our counter.
So in reality, it's actually not a counter, it's just going back to your original proposal.
I mean, we think it's a good proposal.
What are
I
the-
know with kind of what y'all said last time we were in here, but I got to tell you, I do agree that doing it by years in classification, I think it does help with compression and not create compression. I think doing it the other way actually would create compression.
It doesn't create it, it just doesn't do anything to filter it.
Right.
What are the odds, and I know you're not one of the decision makers for the ultimate 5, what are the odds of an additional increment coming out of the board in September meetings?
You mean like cost of living?
Yeah.
I think, from what I understand, it's pretty favorable that it'll be 2%, maybe more. I'll be honest with you, I'm asking for more. But what's been discussed up to this point is 2%, and I feel pretty confident that will pass.
Because I think the CPI was 4 point something this year.
396.
Yeah, and that's why I'm going back and asking.
Yeah.
The push the scale to 2% was something Janice and Amber kind of brought forward, but I'm going to ask for more. I'm going to tell me no.
Can you give us about 5?
Sure.
My steps in today.
Yes, sir.
Go to HR. Go to HR.
What's that?
Okay, good to go.
We're going to take your counter off and pitch it to the troops.
Okay.
What we need, whenever we can get it. I know Ms. Hewell's been diligent about keeping up with stuff. If we can get an underlined copy,
Okay.
electronically would be fine.
Sure.
So that we can get it put on Power DMS at the jail. Once we do that, then we will go to the musters at the camp, at the jail, explain the situation. Hopefully, in the coming days, we'll know too about the COLA.
Great.
We still got a couple articles we got TA.
I thought we had done all of them. What are we missing?
Promotional procedures, which references Appendix C, assignment pay.
Article 22.
And then, of course, we have duration and renewal.
That'll be 3 years from whenever it's ratified.
Right. And salaries, we can rework to incorporate the wage proposal, and then we can also create, the old contract attached the pay scale as an exhibit. So we can break out the classifications and the pay grades as an exhibit, and then incorporate the terms of the wage proposal into the contract provision.
What were the remaining articles?
3, duration and renewal. 21, salaries, which references attachment B. And 22, promotional procedures, which references Appendix C. There's a copy if you'd like.
We agree that it'll be 3 years from ratification, correct?
Yes. That's by statute.
Because if I'm not mistaken, Article 21 is the appendix, and basically taking the career path and taking it out of 21 and putting it into 22.
Correct.
That's fine. And then the main change in 22 is taking the MCO and the RCO from being assignment to being promotional.
That will be offered, bet chief, that will be offered down at the main jail?
Yes.
Yeah, they are gonna offer an MCO.
Yeah, it's gonna help out a
position.
lot if we do that. Since people that wanna advance their career a little bit, and like you guys did, go get your EMT.
And that's a 15% increase if you get your EMT.
And sustain it.
Yeah.
So you want to have 2 signed copies?
Put that on a verbal.
Okay.
You just make copies. And then the only change that we're signing on the thing is taking the RCO was a $300 assignment pay, and MCO was a $435 assignment pay, taking it from assignment pay to promotional process. So that way, assignment pays can come and go.
Yeah, we're gonna do something on the requirements for an officer.
Yeah. Yeah. On the, talking about the, job. Whenever you get it, just let us know.
We can memorialize that in policy.
I thought you wanted this to be revised. We gave you a wage proposal. This just references Appendix B. I mean, it depends upon if you want the wage proposal that we provided to just be attached as an appendix to, as B. Is that what you're saying?
No, I thought we were on the wage proposal is what it is, but I thought we were signing because we changed the appendix.
We can do that if that's how you want to do it. I think that works. Why don't you want your attorney to look at this?
Yeah.
So as we had previously proposed, that has the Me Too provision
Yeah,
already in it.
yeah, it's right there, it's underlined. Yeah, because I think that actually probably works better as an appendix.
In
Since
the
it's
old
a-
contract, it was just our BCC pay schedule that lists the codes and then the pay grades.
But being it's a one-time, not a multi.
Right, so this would have to incorporate the change for the incumbents, which is a one-time deal. But then we also have to put in the new, because we have a new pay scale with new,
Pay grade
the.
and steps.
Yes, the pay grades, not necessarily, I guess we wouldn't put the whole wage scale in, but we would need to delineate the, like, B8, you know, the grades that each class, for the base grades. So if you want to just put all that in an attachment and as Exhibit B, we can do that.
I think that's gonna be easiest.
Yeah, I think so too. Do you think it's best to do that and then have us look at it again to make sure that we're?
We can certainly do that.
Yeah, just
That was,
email it
I
to
thought,
us.
yeah, I thought you would want to do that before you even signed off on it, but if you're okay with that, we can.
I think let's do that to make sure
Yeah.
that we're saying the same thing and that it visually makes sense to both of us.
Yeah,
Or to all of
okay.
us.
Okay.
Once you send it to us.
Then we'll just hold off on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So you want me to just keep this one?
That it?
I think so. So we TA 3, 22, and Appendix C, so that leaves 21 and Appendix B.
Yeah. And we're just waiting on the language on that.
Do you want to cover that language that we discussed?
Oh, the recruitment incentive, yes, we need to discuss
That
that.
as well as the, YouTube.
It's a top of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Mhm.
Alan, we do have one more thing that I'd like to let Crystal cover.
So the county as a whole is doing recruitment, retention, recruitment efforts. In order to do so, county administrator as well as the board of county commissioners is going to be designating certain positions to receive a lump sum, one-time $2,000 sign-on bonus. So for your corrections officers that are certified, basically they sign up, we give them $2,000 as soon as they start, and then they have to commit a year to us for employment purposes. So just putting it out to all the unions, make sure you guys are aware that's the efforts that we're trying to do for recruitment purposes, and that there will be a contract that they'll sign on to.
And it's proposed to become a BCC policy that would permit the county administrator the discretion to determine which classifications are eligible and take that recommendation to the board for them to approve. So as long as there's a need to recruit a particular classification, then it would be offered, but it wouldn't be offered on a permanent basis.
I think some of these people who are leaving and going back to state are actually picking up, what, $2,000 to go back to state, even though they're being run a scam on their certification, which I gotta find out, get another opinion on it, but at one point in time, the most they could do was put a civil lien on them for violation of that contract, because it's not a criminal violation, and they can't just, criminal justice standards will not take your standards unless you've got a violation, but there's some, I guess violation of a contract could somehow or another, they'll find a way to put it under a moral character violation.
Okay. Anything else?
So do you have any objection to the recruitment incentive pay policy?
It is what it is.
Thank you.
All right.
We'd like to see a $2,000 retention also.
I understand.
I had to say it. They're thinking it.
All right, that'll wrap us up then. All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
I will, if it's all right, scan these and email them to you?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
My brief. We don't know.
Then.
All right, how do we left it that we kind of outlined what we would propose as a wage package that addressed the compression issue. And what we would like to do is kind of focus on that. And focus on the issue of wages until we can get some kind of conceptual agreement. Is that fair to say? Good.
I'll add one thing on that proposal. The captain slot, we would like to change that to 62,702.64 to add some separation between the captain.
Can you say the amount again, please? I'm sorry.
62,702.64.
64? 64, okay.
What would be the proposed base rate?
Sorry.
Or is that just a correction?
The math works out to about 26.45 off of the 9-hour schedule of 2,370 hours. So if I'm off by the hours it could be a couple of pennies here or there.
Does that change the pay grade? No, okay.
I don't know, it should be a change pay rate.
They should force the charge, but that's the pay grade.
Okay.
what we were talking about, just maybe amending this chart to reflect a 24-hour capital slot, something that we plan on doing. There's a discussion about it. It's really just a conversion that's going to take place, but if it's something that is in the works, it may be worthwhile to put it in there as well, in the event that that occurs.
And there's 3 slotted for next budget
Okay.
on the 24th.
All right. So I guess where we left off, then you threw those things on the table. Do you have a concrete stance on the holiday?
Honestly, we haven't talked about holiday. We mainly just focused on that issue, so we've not discussed any of the other holiday stuff, the holiday or. It's something, I know we got some time. We can either, I hate to start right back with the conference, but we can do that, give us time to talk about some of these other things. Or we could wrap this session up and let y'all think about this pay proposal, and we can come back and tackle these other articles on Monday.
When you're talking about general consensus of pay, all that stuff wraps into this. So, I mean, we can sit here and talk about this all day, but if we don't know what our holiday's gonna be, or as soon as they're gonna roll into it, you know, how are we supposed to sell this to the membership and say, hey, guys, this is what's the full package, instead of just saying, hey, this is just part of it, we don't know what the other stuff is. A lot of guys are gonna balk at that.
I understand, just in my opinion, well, it's not everything, it's certainly a big thing. So that's why I wanted to tackle that first. Let you know where I am, what I'm going to offer, and then tackle some of that stuff. Not saying that this stuff's not important.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? We have a facilities director.
Give me just a second.
As a question, Wes, so with the original proposal, the sheet without all the writing on it, just as you brought it in today, are you authorized by the BCC to sign an MOU? Should we take that? I'm just trying to figure out where you've been authorized. Should we want to do that?
I've been authorized with a certain dollar amount.
Okay.
Not to
exceed.
Not to exceed that we represent to the board. And I am still right there at that threshold.
So, which I think, so ultimately, I was just discussing with him, ultimately, we'd like to try and get that MOU signed, obviously, as quick as possible.
Oh, I'd like to wrap this contract up. Let's take the whole deal.
And certainly, that, I think that we're on the right track to do that. I don't foresee that being an issue. I guess my biggest concern, if we're going to be open with each other, and I appreciate you being very open and candid with us so far.
Sure.
That has gone a long way just in today's conversation, so thank you for that. But ultimately, and Nick, you can shut me down anytime you feel necessary. We would like to get an MOU signed on all of it, either wrap it up, but get an MOU signed prior to October on the salaries and stuff. Is that something that you've been authorized or are able to?
I am authorized, yeah.
Okay.
However, my preference and my strong inclination is, let's wrap this contract up, and let's take it off to the board.
No, and
I agree. I guess what we need to know in terms of what you propose in this chart to reach the estimated annual, what all is included in that? Is that based solely on hourly rate calculations, and how exactly was that done? Does it have any form of incentive built into it? I mean, obviously incentives, I guess, would be added separately, but for the base rate, how is that calculated up?
The base,
I feel like that's the number that's being looked at downtown, is I want that final number, so.
the base rate, like when a firefighter comes in, was based on, pushing to the $11 scale.
Yes, sir.
Plus 2%. That's the base rate. That's how it was calculated.
Are you asking if there's something else that's included in that one?
Well, I'm asking, because one of the charts that was presented previously, it outlined across the board your starting rate, what the forced to scale adjustment, what the value was, what that put you at, what your old cost was, all of that was all itemized out, and that has been a great tool.
We can demonstrate that if you'd like to see that way. That's not a problem.
Okay. Well, and I don't want to do it just for the sake of doing it. If we're all agreeable and understanding how it's all put together, but that was something that chart did have. It had the value for holiday pay, and at the end of it, it spit out what the total annual salary was, base pay, pay was. So that's where that number corresponds to the previous chart of, at a firefighter, for example, at A3 at $12.37 an hour. That salary equates to including holiday pay. And I recall this is what was on the table last time, so it was at 24 hours of holiday pay, so on and so forth. So if that's still the rules, parameters we're playing by, and that's reflected in your current, okay, cool.
Were you talking about the hourly rate?
Sir?
Were you talking about, on that chart, the hourly rate?
The chart you gave us today, or the old chart?
No, this one today.
Today, yes.
The hourly rate does not include holiday pay blended onto it.
I'm sorry, no, I know the hourly rate doesn't, but did you take one? No. Yes.
He got mine.
The estimated annual, that number, if.
Does the estimated annual have holiday rate in it?
Off the charts, the way they've been building them, yes.
Okay.
But the hourly doesn't include the holiday pay percentage.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we got
I understand.
percentage.
Yeah. Right, I understand that. Yeah.
This number does. This number doesn't. Correct. Yeah, it's the
You
estimated
back
annual.
the old percentage out? That was you?
Because as it's been proposed.
Well, I'm sorry, never mind. We
Right.
explained all that last time. That's right. But the end of year, the annual
The annual salary
estimated,
that you see out there, yes.
is that based solely on hourly rate, hours worked, that type of thing?
Okay.
Because there are those other factors that go into how our pay is calculated.
Well, if you're at $12.99, for instance, that strictly $12.99 hourly rate, based on what you normally calculate to be 26 to 27 a year. So there's some other things that come into play that bring the salary up to 41, 42.
Sure.
So
Well, they're not calculating benefits into this, or it's not the total cost per employee, but it's that salary. So previously, what was discussed, going by the parameters that were current practice, the FLSA overtime, the built-in overtime, the wages, wage balancing pay is what it is. I know that's come up in question at times. If the offer of the holiday, the additional holiday pay, that becomes a factor in determining, say, here's what your annual pay is. So that's what I wanted to know, if those things were reflected here, or if that was just based solely, how we arrived at this number.
I'll take a stab at it, Chris, and then That number is based on your scheduled overtime hours, working your scheduled overtime hours, and working, maybe you're working a holiday. You work it, if you're working every opportunity, you're working at your schedule, that's what your annual salary would be.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure that Crystal or Nikki could create a new spreadsheet that's updated, if that's what you're asking for.
Is that
I mean, I think it would be helpful, we need to be able to
She probably
demonstrate.
already has that.
Yeah.
The last offer we had on the,
Close to it.
in negotiations reflected, the same number of holidays as all county employees, and being paid 24 hours of straight time for those holidays, regardless if you work the day or not. So that's what was there, and that represents a certain value awarded to the employee.
Right. To get.
So that's, you know, obviously, a big deal.
Yeah, let us provide that to you, we're happy to do that.
Okay.
I'm a little bit of disadvantage today because I don't think Nikki or Crystal here today.
I understand.
Things come up, so we're kind of on the fly.
You mentioned, this represents hours worked in terms of, you know, physical hours worked and overtime, things like that. So based on previous conversations, my understanding is that 14 hours of wage balance has become a bit of an issue, as far as understanding the comprehension of how our pay is calculated, and that's understandable. And that's fine. If we can make adjustments to simplify the process where it's more in line and uniform with the rest of the county workers, with the industry standards, that's fine. It must be understood that that is a wage balancing pay, and if you in fact remove that language that protects that 14 hours being paid regardless of hours worked, if you remove that, if I exercise use of annual leave earned, that is a pay cut, and that's inappropriate. So we feel that there should be an offset there to create that balance. And if that happens, then it puts us in line completely uniform, where you could follow the FLSA guidelines.
Well, I think that's going to be something we're going to need to really discuss.
Okay.
That will be our proposal, is I would, you know, if you take off in the middle of the week or whatever, the shift work, you don't physically work those hours. Right now, like any other department in the county, there's no way those hours count as hours work. I mean, as hours worked for overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take 2 hours off, your scheduled extra hours, 2 of those scheduled extra hours will be at straight time, the rest of your overtime.
Yes, sir.
So that's kind of, that is what our
Yes, sir.
proposal would be.
And understandable, and as far as, I think where we run into an issue is more of an order of operations in terms of calculation of pay. That 14 just ends up tripping folks up sometimes, in the way in which it's applied. And, you know, for various reasons, a number of years ago, that's where that landed, and that was the simplest way for us to convert to the 14-day cycle, and so on and so forth, and that was agreeable. It's regardless of that, it's an issue today for certain folks, and that's no problem. We just, if we agree or stipulate that, yeah, we'll just do away with that language and that practice, that's an immediate pay cut for our employees, and so obviously we have to offset that. And I mean, we're talking between 4 and 5% there. 4.1%.
Well, that's if you take off one day every shift, maybe one day every pay period, I guess, maybe. If you don't take off, it's not taken at all. And don't get me wrong, I know, we all gonna take days here and there, I understand. And so, I understand what you're saying.
And I don't disagree with the principle of balancing your hours, you know, not earning overtime for hours you didn't physically work. I can understand that. That 14 hours doesn't represent earning overtime for hours not worked. It represents a way to balance and get that end of the year base wage in place. And that's just how it's applied. So we just have to figure out another way to make that happen, where if I do exercise the use of leave that I earn, that I'm not penalized for that, I don't lose money at the end of the year just because I took time off. You shouldn't give, you don't, your salary doesn't go down because you take a vacation that the county awards you time to take, you know. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, I would say, consistency throughout the county. I mean, you know, the guys, facilities, you know, okay, let me use public works. Just so you know. So there never fails that an emergency or a call out or a tornado or something's gonna happen on a holiday week. Never fails. And so, when these guys work, and then, I'm using holiday because it's easier. But it would come time to, they had to work, they had no choice. It would come time to payday, they didn't get time and a half because they didn't physically work 40 hours and then over because there's a holiday. The way we solved that was, in those instances, in those situations, if we have a holiday in a week, we have some emergency that happens, that for that pay period only, the holiday will count as hours worked, so that the additional work can be paid off the time and a half. I know it's a little bit different scenario than what we're discussing here, but it was something that we created, we came up with. You know, I hear what you're saying. I'll have to think about it a little bit, and mull it over a little bit. But I do understand what you're saying. But for across the county, I think it needs to be consistent, honestly. And it is easier to explain and sell when we're all being consistent countywide. So, but let me think about it.
Yes, sir, and I don't disagree with that, and if the percentage increases were more reflective of how far behind we are in the industry across all the ranks, if we were closer to that number rather than we're gonna put all county employees in the same scale and where you go, I think that's an easier, pill to swallow if it would afford us opportunity to be a lot more open-minded and understanding that wash there. But the majority of these increases, especially for those more senior staff, the officer staff and the senior firefighter staff, if we just allow that language to go away, that wage balancing pay to absolve, it would be harmful, and the 2 to 3% or what have you, it would still end up being a pay cut of approximately 1% on an annual basis.
So are you, just so I'm clear, are you asking that the senior staff be included in the adjustment proposal? Is that what you're asking?
The adjustment proposal that we spoke about before the break. I think officer staff need to be included in that as well. Yeah, I do. I understand trying to find a happy medium there, but I think that will account for something. But you can also throw out and say, hey, I'm gonna give you guys 10% over here, but we're changing some rules and parameters here that cost us 7%. Well, that game is only 3, right? And while it may sound good for one side over here to say, we gave you 10% raises, this is great, we did them right. In reality, we took home 3, and that's what all the employees know is what they actually brought home. And I don't want that to create conflict in the future. I don't want one side thinking we did a great thing here and really went above and beyond and got you a good, meaningful proposal accomplished, when in reality this group that is supposed to be happy about it is kicking rocks around going, I only got 3 because it was a switcheroo, I really don't want to do that. I want to be upfront about where we're at.
Yeah, I'm so, like I said, I'm looking at some things. I'm looking at leave balances. I'm looking at how many hours of leave are taken a year, fiscal year, not a staff. And kind of run some numbers that way. You can see what it's done to, and what the impact it is. And,
Did you have an opportunity to the I guess I'll call it the longevity discussion, or what was put out there?
We haven't discussed anything else other than this.
No, I'm sorry, the stuff you said you were running figures on.
The 246.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, we ran that.
Okay.
It's doable.
And that's doable?
It kind of, it follows, I'm still within the threshold that was approved by the board to be come to the table.
Would y'all be able to have a discussion about the holidays to see where your stance is on that today?
Sure.
Because we kind of need to know that, because I'm gonna be honest with you, everybody in the room's smart enough to figure this out, so why don't we just throw it out there? Everything is calculated as a percentage of increase or decrease. Whether it's holiday pay, I don't care what name you want to put on it, it's all associated to a percentage of increase. And if we're looking to get X increase, we can add it to whatever we want to, but at the end of the day, it all comes out to the same amount to your pot. So we have to figure out if you're gonna pay 12 hours or 24 hours, we attribute that to a percentage increase. And so that reflects as to whether we accept this or don't accept it, or you see where I'm going? So once we know whether that's on or off the table, it dictates whether this is considered acceptable or not.
Okay.
Okay, and we are, just to be clear, the incentive pay, we're good with that. That was all good there, that wasn't a.
And to his point, it is a package deal, and I completely understand where you're at on things, but it is an important conversation to have and be known that this is the intent of what we're gonna do. Because in our minds, we're taking what we last received at the table, and what we last received was that incentive program for the various different incentives, and then the holiday value that we discussed. So in our mind, that's where we left off at, and unless we propose something different, that's what we would expect to see as an offer. And if you have something different, things have changed, we need to know that.
And to be fair, what we did, and once again, I'm just being honest, what we did is we took your last proposal to our membership, because that was the last thing y'all put on the table. We said, hey, this is what they offered. We had discussion on that. So, and we put a percentage to everybody's paycheck. This is what you'll receive percentage-wise according to the plan that you provided. So that's where we're at with our membership. Whether they agreed or disagreed, it doesn't matter right now, but that's what we presented to them. We have to be very clear on this one so we can go back and propose the same thing, because they're gonna go, well, wait a minute, they gave me X amount of increase on my last proposal, now you're telling me they're actually taking stuff away. Or you're adding stuff. I don't know what it is at this point, because we haven't come to a decision on what that's gonna be. So that's basically how we're trying to figure out where we're at, so.
Sure. My hope for today, Monday, would be that we can have these conversations, get to that point, because obviously you've got a mark somewhere in there, and we want to try to be respectful of that and work to get to that point. And let's get the rough draft of this thing knocked out today, know where everybody stands. We all have the opportunity to get through this weekend and hopefully sit down, hopefully Monday, and we're signing paperwork and we're done. Because as you said earlier, I think it is absolutely silly to put all this effort into just the wage portion of this and get to it when it is obviously, I would say, probably the most contentious aspect of what's left on the table. To get that done and then potentially end up in an impasse over something silly. It's a drastic waste of time and money for everybody. When we put a little extra work in it and it all wraps together, we're done with that. That's what I want to do.
All right, well, let's talk this then. Let us talk about something. All right.
I think we come in there.
Hit the same button, it pauses it.
The one on the side that's lit up? Started, you just can't stop it.
Oh, no.
All right, thanks for that caucus. I'll join in. So we still want to focus on pay. And from what we heard, last time we met is that we give you a pay plan with increases, and then we address the issue of compression with a 246 proposal. And then you said to us, so we have to have some idea where you want to go on FLSA offset and the definition of time worked on holidays, because that plays into all this, as you know, we are backing this formula of holiday pay out. And then there's also an issue on 14 holidays. So this would be like sort of how we would address all of this if we got to an agreement. And if we got to an agreement, what we would propose is that in each year, 72 hours of leave taken would be considered time work for the purposes of overtime. But when you get past 72 hours, it's not considered time work. As for holidays, there would be 13 holidays, and the holiday benefit is 12 hours that was proposed. I don't have a calculation on how that compares to the current formula. We have to look into that. Part of all of that, if we can reach an agreement, is that for the current year, we would let everybody in the bargaining unit have an extra holiday to take off. Because we can't recalculate the formula, but we would let people have a holiday to take off. And then all of the pay increases that we've already described. So you can take those two pieces that we talked about just now, offset, time work, holidays, and you can take that into consideration. That would be our position, coupled with the pay adjustments. That we
So
articulate.
72 hours of 3 days of the 13 holidays, 72 hours, or 93 days, 72 hours worth would be considered, or we could, I guess, elect to choose as time worked for purposes of time worked.
Yes.
For leave, we're talking about leave.
For leave, not.
For leave, so
Holidays.
72 hours of leave that counts as time worked.
The
Oh,
holiday
okay.
benefit is separate.
And it was a compromise, because people who are responsible, who do their time diligently, you know, most of you aren't gonna burn up your time, and you lose that extra pay by burning time up. So 72 hours, you take 1 day off, you get 5 days, so it hopefully
So you just
kinda
make an
help.
election on your time sheet, say on
Exactly, so that's 72 hours worth of time that goes towards not counting for missing that extra pay. Does that make sense?
It would be, yeah, you could designate it so that
Right.
when you know you're working overtime in a week, that's when you take it.
So it could be, you could be elective as far as when we choose to use those hours. So it's, I'm on my short period, I take leave, I don't want that to count as time worked.
Yeah.
I would think that, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can dice it up as you want.
Um, And is the 246, is that sticking, is that, you able to move that throughout the ranks, or is that?
246?
Yes, sir.
That's my proposal, yeah. Yes.
We're all,
I will take all this, and granted, this is, I still have to go sell this to my board.
sure.
And I believe that with myself, Eric, Chief, Debbie, Kristen, I believe I can be successful in doing it. Can't guarantee it, but I believe I can.
Right, so what I'm saying, realistically speaking, when we're looking at a timeline,
Possibly the second meeting in September.
that's just to try to get approval for some of these aspects. That's not putting a tentative agreement in front of them for their
Well,
approval.
I can put it to, if we come to a tentative agreement on everything, we
Well, I mean, the process, obviously, y'all would know, we could come back together Monday and do a tentative agreement on the entire contract, which would be phenomenal. Lets me start my process to ratify. We get back to you quickly, as soon as possible, so you can get on the agenda and rock on. But if that's the process you're talking about, then okay, great. I was interpreting it to mean that you needed to go back to another executive session, get permission on this little aspect first, and then we have to come back together and meet.
I will have an executive session scheduled, but I will also, I think I can inform the commissioners of my proposal, have them think about it, be thinking individually on it.
Yes, sir.
And then I think we'll be ready this week.
Yeah, we could have a tentative agreement on Monday with the understanding that your people have to approve it, our people have to approve it.
Sir.
Let me ask you this. Tell us what you need for Monday. What
I like
information
everything
you
we've
need?
discussed and talked about. I appreciate the creativity and coming up with the 72 hours. That's great. The 246, we need that applied through all ranks. We need that. It's clear that, it appears clear anyway, that the intent for holiday pay is to be 12 hours, not 24. So understandable. I will try to understand it. But you know, again, the retention side of things is being overshadowed significantly by worrying about the recruitment side of things. Here's what we discussed, and here's what I would come to you. We would say take the starting firefighter pay back down to the previous offer, $12.37. That should give you some breathing room. And then that way, take the 246, apply it through all ranks. I don't have the metrics on that either, obviously, but I feel like that's a concession there.
Let me ask you a question. This is my own personal experience.
Yes, sir.
My departments that I've been involved with. I usually don't, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, so I usually don't have a problem retaining the folks in positions, especially that are in management, supervision, been there a while. I'm not saying you never lose one or two, but in my experience, it's your entry-level folks, your folks that are in the grind day in, day out. Not that the upper levels aren't in the grind, I'm not saying that.
We're not, yes, sir, we're not talking about, no disrespect, we're not talking about administrative chiefs that sit in an office, that never get their hands dirty kind of thing. Company officers are in the streets, in the grind, fighting fire 2 o'clock in the morning, doing those jobs. As are the battalion chiefs.
Are we losing those officers?
It's because we're stuck here, and I don't think they should be
Penalized for
shorthanded
that.
because, well, y'all ain't going nowhere. You've been here too long to go anywhere, so you're not going anywhere. And I feel like that's kind of how that comes off. And when, on the other hand, an employee who has worked hard and achieved promotions or become a supervisor, that shouldn't be overshadowed either. You know, it should be appreciated and acknowledged as well. And I don't mean to sound accusatory, like that's your intent, but it can certainly come off that way that, well, we're gonna just focus on these down here, and y'all aren't going anywhere, so I'm not doing anything for you. That's kind of how that comes off, and you know, it's hard not to see it that way when, again, these are things that are completely out of your control, but when we've seen on so many occasions that comments like that are made by leadership within, that represent the county, it comes off as it's a very direct thing. So that's, I'm just trying to address that. And I understand, you know, not gonna come in here and say, hey, we want 20% across the board for the starting firefighter and the company officers, because that value is astronomically higher, you know? So I agree with there being kind of an offset there, and putting the majority of funds available where they really need to go, do the most work at. But it doesn't mean you just forget about these folks over here altogether. And while, yeah, I mean, that's just it. I should not just beat the horse there, but.
Sure, I understand, and certainly that was my mindset. We're having a hard time recruiting, having a hard time retaining and lower ranks. So that's what I was trying to address. I wasn't trying to. No, we don't disrespect anybody. That was something we came up with in here on the fly, 246. It was just something we heard what y'all mentioned.
No,
it was just a way to try to address it.
But you can also think about it like this too. If you fail to address that lower level management, that lieutenant's position, what's going to incentivize these people that are able to promote? No, I'm not going to promote because they don't care about me at this point in time. You know, when I get there, they just, oh, you're stuck there, you're going to move on. So how do we continue to grow a positive environment and grow our people when we're not taking care of the people that are here? And people that put in 10, 15 years to get to that position, you're not taking care of them at all. We're just saying, hey, we're worried about that 0 to 5 year guy, that's all we care about. So you start creating a toxic environment by not addressing it either.
You know, I was gonna say, it's something that we're not intending to freezing people out, but, you know, the way the world workforce, the way the American workforce is going in that direction, we're trying to address the compression problem. There's gonna be a huge compression problem in the United States. When they get a $15 an hour minimum wage, they're not moving everybody at $5. They're just gonna, you know, first 10 years in, everybody's making $15. It's just how that is. It's like people address. I mean, even like when I negotiate the state, they're like, this amount of money for people who make under this amount and this amount less, people lower that amount. It's compressing the workforce every year and a half for years. It's just how it is.
But isn't that maybe the problem of what we're having when we can't recruit and retain people for these positions? Mm-hmm. Why can't we be creative and start an environment where people want to come work here?
Trust me, I'm trying.
No, and I agree. That's what I'm saying is like by not addressing it, it's. And I know we can always come back to the table later and this and that. But we're talking about right now. We're talking about a significant amount of money for lower ranked people, and it really is a kick in the face to those guys that have been here 10+ years when you're giving them 2. So in that sense,
2 plus whatever the board gives you.
Plus whatever the board.
So you could be moved as much as 4 or 5.
But that's in the eye of the beholder, and we're not the beholder. So what's tangible is what's on this piece of paper, 2 plus whatever. Well, all they see is 2%. That could be, well, they could just say, hey, we're going to give you a cookie and be good to go. So we're putting faith in that realm versus putting faith in what's on paper.
Tell you what, can you give me 5 minutes and just hang outside for a minute?
All right, we're good.
All right, so listen, man, I heard what you said. I think we worked hard today to put a good proposal, get a good proposal on pay and some other things. Creativity, and my proposal is what my proposal is.
is the,
It's the 246 in just the
246
A4
fire.
classification for the firefighters.
This is everything we've discussed up to this point, as we said was a conceptual proposal, that's what it is.
And now you can clarify, you still have to take this back to executive session to be approved.
Correct.
Okay.
It definitely seems like we're, I mean, obviously you're bound by how much you can spend. We were looking at things, throwing numbers around, we don't have exact figures obviously, but it seems like you're working real close to where the last time, what the cost was the last time we sat at the table and what was proposed right now. Is that offer, or I guess if the numbers are the same, the payout's the same, at the end of the day, what caused this to change today, or the parameters to change? If the
So about the money, the proposal here?
Yes, sir.
I was working hard to drive up, the pay as much as I could and stay within the parameters to hopefully address recruitment and retaining, and also, compression. That's,
I understand that I have, just as you have to make a sale, as do we.
sure.
You know, and although there are, we're talking about the company officers, right? That's still a significant percentage of our membership, and they matter too.
Absolutely.
You know, and considering the previous offer that was on the table and how that applied out across the board, they know what those numbers were and what they were looking at, and now I gotta come back to them and say, hey, you need to knock about 5-6% off of that. Is kind of what it comes down to. That's what I've got, bouncing around in my head.
yeah, you're gonna have to, you're making a pitch to people that don't exist. You're gonna tell the lower guys, we're gonna give you 20, arbitrary numbers, 20% on people that aren't even here. And you're gonna tell the guys that are already here that we're giving you 4. And so that's a hard pill to swallow when you've already been to them one time from your last agreement, and we told everybody, once again, arbitrary number of we're giving you 10 or 12%. And now I gotta go back and be like, well, now we're only giving you 4, but we're giving them 20. So in other words, that same pot of money is about the same, we've just redistributed who's getting it.
Well, the 2, 4, and 6 go to people that are already here.
Only in the firefighter ranks.
Yeah.
When I talk about distributed, I'm talking about amongst all the ranks.
Yeah, well,
And that's my point, is that by moving those percentages around, we're roughly within the same amount of money. It's just who's getting that money is what's changed. And it's pretty clear when you start running the numbers as to what you're looking at, where we're going here. And once again, that's what we're trying to get at, is that's a harder sell for our people, because we're pitching something to people that aren't here. We're gonna raise our increase to people that aren't even here, but we're gonna give people that are here lesser amount of money than what we originally offered you a month and a half ago. That's the difficulty that we're gonna have trying to cross that bridge.
So listen, I have heard a whole lot of discussion, and since I've been in this position, and even before, about how we can't hire people, we're not paying enough, we can't be compatible, we can't compete with our neighboring counties, we just can't do it, we can't hire anybody, we're not paying enough to recruit people. I've heard a whole lot of talk about that. I heard, I listened to it. And so, yeah, I'm hoping to make us compatible with as close as we can with our neighboring, counties and agencies, so that we can hire people.
But there's only one aspect of it. When you look at a lot of these places, they have pay progression plans. We have zero pay. Now we have this chart that's dependent upon a vote. No, you hit year 2, you get this. You hit year 3, you get this. You promote, this is what you get. And then, you promote on year this, you get this, you get this, you get this. They can sit there at year 0 and know exactly in 25 years exactly what they're making. We can't do that. We can't even, that's not even a sell we can do for anybody.
So let's build on that then. What, the work that you've done, or this team has done, is a big bite of the apple, obviously. I don't think anybody would disagree with this, or say that it's been easy. And we're talking about folks that have been here for quite a while. That's the employees we're talking about. And we've all been forced to be very patient over the years. So let's be a little more patient. And to his point, can we solidify some language that says that we will make those wage progression steps through the chart that the county is putting us into? Not, at least for the life of this contract, not just the board discretion if they decide to do a COLA or not this year, but acknowledge the fact that we are behind throughout the ranks. Now, you're knocking out the starting guys, obviously, with what you're proposing there, but for the retention side of things, that we will progress through the life of the contract. So, through that proposed chart, through the scale, that 2% each year for the life of the contract, of this contract. It's been said numerous times. I've heard plenty of conversation as well that this is the intent of the board. They want to put this out there for everybody, and the intent is to allow all employees, to progress through it annually. Again, no fault to anybody in this room, but we know circumstances come up, and one year they can do it, one year they can't. Those things matter. So if we can put some language in that solidifies what they have said their intention is, I think that would help things out a lot. And that's not a bigger bite of apple you're trying to come up with right now. And it gives the opportunity to work that out in the future. I think that's fair.
It's something we could talk about. Like, there's nothing I can offer you today.
Well, all you'd offer me today is words.
Hey, I hope we're following along that we've been in previously.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's a good proposal. I think it's a strong proposal. And if you think it's just words, okay.
No, I didn't mean it that way. I meant if you were, if we put some words in about securing future steps. The only thing you offer me then really is words at that point. You're not pulling money out of your pocket today.
All I can offer you today is that I cannot offer you to tell you that I can try this. I have to study it, I have to look at it.
Yes, sir.
I have to get with Crystal and look at her pay scale, and look at her pay scale and what those intentions are. And, it's nothing I can throw out today.
Mike, you asked about Monday, right?
Yeah.
There's obviously still other articles here that need to be discussed.
Sure.
I just cut through it. We have an impasse here coming up. It's October 6th. I think it's stupid to go to impasse over where we're at with as much progress has been made just in this short little time here. But I understand time constraints, and executive sessions, all this type of stuff. I think we need to have a very serious conversation about how do we get this thing buttoned up and done. And obviously the pay aspect, we understand more clearly the workings of it, how it's all calculated, where we're at with that. Obviously, we would like to reach an agreement on that before fiscal year. So, how do you see us get there? If we come back together Monday.
If we come together Monday, we come to terms, we'll see that this all works out. We'll make a contract happen, and we'll make it happen fast. And we won't be able to.
Chrissy, can we call a special executive session? Not Chris, I'm Kristen.
Okay.
It's exempt from this public, it's exempt from the sunshine law.
We would need to advertise it, I think is the, kind of the issue.
When we advertise it as a smart thing to do, because people don't want to see that, but statute says, the meeting is exempt from sunshine.
Right.
To the advertisement is part of the same.
How long do you have to advertise?
Well, ideally, we would have already sent the notice to the news journal, so it would be a short time frame.
Can you just meet the Allison?
Yeah.
Yeah, Allison has to be comfortable with it. But you can have an emergency meeting.
Is it loaded?
3 days, right?
And say, Detroit, I'm trying
So,
2 cars in a school bus.
we're trying to
Detroit
call
and
a
Raleigh.
special executive session.
Oh, wow.
It's got to be advertised,
North
whatever I
West.
gotta go through.
There you go.
And just so I'm understanding correctly, we would need to meet again following that to sign a full contract or tentative agreement, sign the rest, I guess.
Correct.
Or do you think we can do some work on Monday and let you do your job at an emergency meeting?
Yeah, I mean, most of my contracts right now are being DocuSigned.
So we could send TA the contract Monday, when we go into executive session, we can go down to TA contract.
And say this is all subject to.
The question is, are you comfortable enough with what was on
What
the
I've offered.
What
today,
you've offered,
What
yeah.
I've discussed, yes, I'm fine.
But that little piece I was after has got to be put in front of them, right?
As far as the lieutenants, you mean? What are you
Yes,
talking
sir.
about? No, that's not part of the proposal.
Is it too much to ask to solidify language, securing those steps through the proposed wage progression plan?
I don't know that I can do that by Monday. I mean, that's a little bit of a bigger bite. I think what we're saying here is we have a reopener a year. As long as we have that reopener, that's something we can address through that thing.
Okay. All right, well, I know we're running short on time. Is there anything
Actually, we're
else?
scheduled, I think, until 4.
Okay. Okay. Can we just set this aside, try to work through some others, and again, I would still like to come together Monday and get something
Why
done.
don't we chew on this? Chew on this. You know, I know you got some thoughts going on. You guys
With the 2%.
We come back Monday,
Just with the 2.
ready to hit it and get it.
Because there could be a bump there that would have the extra.
By the time we caucus, discuss whatever, and get back.
Some of our city firefighters.
Wasn't there one, like it was a slight change in a sentence?
Yeah,
That's what I want too.
Yeah, no,
It's gonna be
I don't
done.
think
They're 20.
Yeah,
those
so
would be great.
you
I
can't
think
do anything.
You can't do that.
we haven't in caucuses really been talking
So
about
as you get further down,
all
Yeah,
of
chance
these
to get
other
into this.
articles, we would focus in on this,
the
really
4%
a conversation.
plus the scale, I mean, you got some that'll see close to, it looks to me, the rate was probably about $9,200 increase. So they'll be going.
I think everything else will fall in place, but I think
This is including.
let's see which
That's right.
That's probably pretty secure.
Yeah, and I mean, and that is the, I guess the hard
Looks like, yeah, 63. So
thing there is that,
call it on this side and two. So,
let me ask this, I mean, given the time we have, would you take just a few minutes,
Yeah.
look at 12, which is wages, and where we had included, the proposed, consent
Okay, yeah,
page,
something
that
seems
was
to be-
proposed by
Okay.
the county, just, because there was some question in terms of how certain aspects would apply, and we had some conversations over there, Chief Cashbone, discussing those things, because there were operational aspects to them. To see if that's, the language that's proposed in that aspect looks good to you guys, and is agreeable. If we can get an answer on that, I think that would help some things as well, allow me to better explain to the membership what we're looking at. Mike, you mentioned, did you just anticipate having time to do something on 16 and 20? Or I thought 20, at least what I lay back for you guys on 20 is what the last offer we received from the county. So if that's still agreeable, if that's still on the table as well, having been pulled, then go to sign that.
Yeah, no, we're not at a point to talk about 20.
I mean, it's pretty simple.
16, well, the only change we made 16 is we eliminated the language 16.8, 16.9. Not that we're going to make any change in that. We're still going to maintain washers and dryers and vehicles. What basic systems do we need to add to that? What taken
There wasn't a need to put it in the contract.
Which portion of that?
16.8 and 16.9.
Yeah.
What's that?
8 and 9, the washing dryers.
16.8 and 16.9.
The washer dryer.
Other things we were gonna put in the,
Wash, I mean.
we were gonna put them in SOD. We're actually gonna write it out.
That on something, I don't have a budget to do it, then I can't do it.
Right.
That is, that was my discussion.
There just wasn't, we didn't think there was a need to put it in the contract, to memorialize those provisions in the contract.
We think that's more of an SOG, but we'd have to figure out how to write the SOG to state, I mean, obviously, everything boils down to what kind of money do we have. The intent always is to have washer and dryers that are well maintained in the stations. Obviously, the intent is to maintain all of our vehicles, and that's a countywide thing that, you know, the commissioners have been paying a lot of attention to. So,
Yeah, but the battalion chief's vehicles get used, and I think that can easily be backed up and demonstrated. They don't sit under oak trees during lunch times and sit parked or whatever, or not used to just go mail around, what have you.
I'm
They're
sorry.
functional emergency vehicles.
We're not looking.
And I absolutely appreciate that, but I would ask you to understand or try to respect the fact that unfortunately, this place has turned into quite a bit of a revolving door. I don't wish any harm towards you. It's just been the nature of the beast here, that we don't get to see the same faces more than a couple of years.
Oh, that long?
Or less, right. You know, so it's, you're a survivor, you know, you've been here a long time and
Thus far.
worked your way
See how
up.
it goes.
Right, and so.
I looked to the extreme end, let me just say.
You know, some things are there not, to ensure that operations stay consistent regardless of, management, because that's the appropriate way of doing business, whether it's the treatment or management, I think the staff or whatever.
We'll talk and on Monday, we'll let you know if we feel comfortable bringing it back in. would be for both of those.
So would it be your intention to come back Monday, you guys make some revisions, do whatever you wanna do and throw something out Monday, see where we're at?
Yep.
On everything.
Okay. All right.
And what we really like to do, I know it's a lot, throwing a lot at you at once, but, I think it was productive. We laid a new wage plan on it. You had some concerns about compression because of the increase in the firefighter starting rate. Got back on that, I think we addressed it. And then you had concerns about how our proposal interplayed with, offset for overtime and, holiday pay. I think I described your position on all of that, so.
And we address the compression between the captain and our.
So, I know that's a lot to chew on, but, we got Monday on this.
But I appreciate the communication, it's been good.
I do too. Absolutely.
All right.
I got some more.
All right, well, I hope everybody
Is
is
there-
safe from this storm. Looks like that.
Hey, Director, do you foresee us being able to meet Monday?
Yeah, I do. Yes. Everything goes to plan. We should be
Oh,
able.
sign these,
Yeah,
so we're, so they're done?
If you don't mind, yeah. That way we got two more off the table.
Which one? Are we done
I just wanted to check, return it all, just
Yeah,
on
yeah.
record that we were signing those.
now? Okay.
Ours, was it 4 and 8?
4 and 8.